Hey guys, welcome to Monroe City Schools TV. My name is Michelle Sorrell and I am going to be working on 6th grade math with you today. So I'm glad you could join me. I teach at Sally Humble Elementary, teach 6th grade math. I'm excited to be here. Today we're going to talk about ratios. Here's the standard for our 6th grade standard. Understand the concept of a ratio and use ratio language to describe a ratio relationship between two quantities. Now, I know in my 6th graders when I teach this, some of these words kind of doesn't make sense to you now, but as we go through the lesson, hopefully at the end, you'll nail it. First thing I want to do is talk about the definition of a ratio. A ratio is a pair of non-negative numbers where both are not zero and describes a relationship between the two quantities. Okay, let's get into how you would write a ratio. There are 3 ways to do so. First way is with the word 2 in the middle. Now, I'm just using A and B. Obviously, when we get started, we'll be using numbers for that. The second way is with a colon. And the third way is as a fraction. Now, on my computer at home, I couldn't use a fraction, so I had to use this division bar, which still means a fraction. So again, 3 ways to write. And as we get started today, we're going to be using all 3 of these ways to write our ratios. How do I read a ratio? All ratios, no matter how they're written, and we just talked about those 3 ways, they're all read with the word 2 in the middle. So obviously, if it has the word 2, then you're going to read it A to B. The colon, also read A to B, and the fraction is also read A to B. All right, now as we start talking more in depth of ratios, some of these key words are really good indicators of, hey, here comes a ratio, or here is a ratio. The word to, which we just said, well, that's how you read them. For each and for every. Those are specific words that you can look for in questions, in any type of scenario that tells you, it's screaming to you that there is going to be a ratio coming up. So let's get started with looking at some examples. The first thing, or this one asks us to write the ratio of moons to stars. Now, we said we're going to write them in 3 ways. And in the earlier slide, when we said those 3 ways, remember the word to, the colon, and as a fraction. So in order for us to write the ratio, we need to count what we have first. Now, as you see, it says moons to stars. So I always ask my students to go ahead and box in the word 2 because, like I said, that's your indicator of there's going to be a ratio. So the first thing that we have to come up with is the moons. 10 to 13. So this is telling me that there are 10 moons and there are 13 stars. There's one way that we wrote it with the word 2. We also wrote it with a colon. And we also wrote it as a fraction. And all we did here was just count how many moons there were and count how many stars. Okay, let's look at our next example. The next one says the ratio of hearts to moons. So let's go ahead and count the hearts. You go ahead and count that, and I'll count that as well. Okay, go ahead and count the moons that you see. And let's see if we're both correct. 11 to 9. Okay, that means there are 11 hearts and there are 9 moons. There's the word 2. There's your colon, and there is your fraction. Okay, to the next example. All right, now we had pictures in the last 2 examples. Now we have words. So let's read what the scenario is talking about. At a 6th grade basketball game, there are 15 players, 30 parents, and 5 coaches. The first question says, what is the ratio of coaches to parents? Well, let's go and look at what we have. And remember, we are looking at coaches to parents. So our first thing are the coaches. Okay? Find how many coaches there are and the parents. Let's think of them in 3 different ways with the word to, with the colon, and as a fraction. 5 to 30. Now, I must say that when some of you looked at this, you may not have thought 5 to 30. You may have thought let's reduce that ratio and say 1 to 6. Absolutely, you could say that. Because when I look at all three of those ratios, ratios can be reduced or simplified. So when I say 5 to 30, you could say 1 to 6. And what we're saying here is for every 5 coaches, there are 30 parents. Or if you had thought of 1 to 6, you could say for every 1 coach, there are 6 parents. Right? Let's go to our next example. What is the ratio of players to coaches? Okay, players to coaches. Let's see if we can find our information. Let's think of writing them 3 ways. Players to coaches. 15 to 5. Now, when I see 15 to 5, when we work math problems, we think, wow, we can't have a larger number first. It must be a smaller number. That's not true with ratios. You can have larger numbers first. So if we're thinking of players to coaches and we see 15 to 5, what else could we think of that as? We could think of that as 3 to 1. So we're saying for every 3 players, there is 1 coach. And last, this one is a little different. This says, what is the ratio of players or coaches to parents? So when I see players or coaches, that's a selection. That means that we could have players or coaches here and parents here. So what are we going to do with these 2 situations? We're going to add them because we have a selection. We can pick players or we could pick coaches. So if I look up in my information, I say players or coaches. I have 15 players and I have 5 coaches. We would combine those for 20. And then I would have parents, which is 30, written in 3 ways. The word to, the colon, and as a fraction. Now, could we say 2 to 3 here? Absolutely. Okay, now let's do some practice together. Those were some examples, and let's do some together. So we are going to write the ratio of squares to pentagons in 3 ways. So squares to pentagons. Okay, so I'd like you to go ahead and count how many squares we have, and then how many pentagons. I'll give you a second. Did you get 15 to 2? Okay, so there's one way to write it with the word to. Remember, our colon and as a fraction. So those are our 3 ways from squares to pentagons. Okay, good job. Okay, let's go to our next example. There are 9 dogs, 4 cats, and 3 fish. First question says, what is the ratio of fish to dogs? So let's go ahead and underline and box in that word 2, because remember that 2 tells us that there's a ratio. Okay, so we're going to look up in our information. Fish comes first, comes before the word 2, so that's the number that I'm going to put first. So I know that I have 3 fish. Dogs, I have 9 dogs. So there's one way to write it with the colon. Now remember, our other 2 ways are with the word to and as a fraction. Now, could I say 1 to 3? Yes, absolutely. You could say for every 1 fish, there are 3 dogs. And remember those key words that we were saying, the word to, for every, for each? Those are ratio indicators. Okay, so 3 to 9 or 1 to 3. Okay, the next question says, what is the ratio of cats or dogs to fish? So I have 2 categories at the beginning of my ratio. Now that means cats or dogs. That means I can choose whichever. So I can have cats or dogs, but I must have fish at the end. So cats or dogs, well, let's see, I have 9 dogs and 4 cats. So we would combine those. So 9 plus 4 is 13. Okay, and how many fish do we have? We have 3. So there's one way to write it with your colon. The next would be the word to and as a fraction. Now, is it okay to have a top number larger than the bottom in ratios? Absolutely. It is fine for that. Okay. Now, I can't simplify this one because there's not a number that would go into 13 and 3 evenly, so we must leave that one 13 to 3. And the last question for this example says, what is the ratio of fish to total animals? So when I say the word total, what does that mean? Absolutely, that means add. So fish comes first. I have 3 fish. Okay, and to total, I would add all of those up, which gives me a total of 16. Correct. So here's the 2. There's my colon. And there it is as a fraction. So hopefully we've got this so far. We're doing well. We have all of our examples for right now. Let's look at our next one. All right, here's our next example. Your mom is cleaning out your drawer, your t-shirt drawer, and finds 7 red t-shirts, 2 yellow t-shirts, and 4 blue t-shirts. Question 1 says, what is the ratio of yellow t-shirts to blue t-shirts? Well, let's go ahead and indicate what we know. Here's our word 2. Yellow comes first, blue comes second. So in your example, does yellow have to come first in your ratio? Yes, it does, because it was mentioned first. It has to. You can't switch these around. If you switch them around, then you don't have the ratio of yellow to blue. You would have a ratio of blue to yellow. So let's make sure that we put yellow first. So up in our information, we have 2 yellows. Okay, how many blues do we have? We have 4. So we have it as a colon. Write it with the word 2 and as a fraction. So there's my 3 ways. Now some of you, when you see that, you may think not 2 to 4, but you may think, what? When you reduce it, you may say 1 to 2. Absolutely. What that is saying is for every 1 yellow t-shirt, you have 2 blue t-shirts. Okay. Number 2, what is the ratio of red or yellow t-shirts to total? So let's go ahead and box in that word 2. We have red or yellow to total. So when we say red or yellow, let's say your mom has all these t-shirts thrown out on the bed. Okay? So if red or yellow, you're looking and you're like, which one do I want to wear? Well, I have all these red t-shirts to choose from. I have 7 of them. And then yellow, I have 2. So I actually have 9 as a choice. So when I say the ratio of red or yellow, I'm putting those together. So 7 reds plus 2 yellows, that's 9. To total. Now total means all t-shirts. So that's all the reds, that's all the yellows, and all the blues. So when I put all of that together, I have what? I have 13. So there it is as a colon. The next way would be with the word 2 and as a fraction. Now 9 to 13, that has to stay 9 to 13 because 9 to 13, that can't simplify. So we're going to have to leave that 9 to 13. What does that mean? That for every 9 red or yellow t-shirts, I have 13 total t-shirts. Last question on this example. What is the ratio of blue or red t-shirts to yellow? Okay, let's go ahead and box in that word 2. And I have blue or red to yellow. Now when it says the or, remember, I can pick from blue or red. So I can pick any one of those 2 colors. So if I look up in my information, blue, I have 4 blues, and red, I have 7. So that means I'm going to put those together. And what would that be? Right, that's 11. Okay? Now to yellow t-shirts. I have 2 yellows, so my ratio will be 11 to 2. There it is as a colon. Whoops. There's the word 2. And there is a fraction. Now, I can't reduce this one, so that's going to have to stay 11 to 2. So what that's saying is I have 11 blue or red, so I can choose from either one of those 11, and then for 2 yellows. Okay? All right, let's do an activity. It's time for us to get to work together a little bit. Now, I know that you may not have M&Ms at home, and no, we're not going to work on M&Ms on here. This was just a little example. But I do have some here in front of me that we're going to look at. So we're going to try to find these ratios of the M&Ms that I've brought today. So now, before we get started, you can do this when we are finished here. You can find whatever. You can do Skittles, M&Ms, you can do pencil colors, you can do any type of activity. You'd even do the t-shirt one that we just did, the example of. But it's good to do some hands-on things. So that's what I want to look at now. So let's make sure that we make sure that we're focused on what we're trying to accomplish here. So again, we're working on ratios, talking about how you can write them and how you read them. So our job is to look at orange to green, blue to yellow, brown to red or blue, and orange or yellow to the total. So those are the colors that I have in front of us now. So let's pull the camera down and let's take a look at what we have. So I've already got them sorted out for us. So our job is to really count them, just like we would when we did the t-shirts if we had them all laid out in front of us. So I have some yellows, orange, blues, greens, reds, and browns. So we have them all separated here. So our job now is I'm going to let the camera stay on the M&Ms first before we look at the first question I'm going to read to you so you can just look at your M&Ms here. I know that probably makes you hungry. What is the ratio of orange to green? So our first focus on is the orange to the green. So the first thing we need to do is count how many of each we have. So go ahead and count the orange and the green and think of how the ratio will be. Okay? So orange, I have 7. I hope I counted that right. And green, I have 4. Okay? So that means that our ratio of orange to green will be 7 to 4. Now, can I say 4 to 7? No, I cannot, because this is orange to green. And we said we had 7 oranges and 4 greens. So that must stay 7 to 4. So that's one way that we wrote it, was with the colon. The next will be with the word 2. And the next as a fraction. Now, can we reduce this at all and make it smaller? No, we can't, so it must stay 7 to 4. So we're saying for every 7 orange M&Ms, we have 4 greens. All right? So the next question that we see, number 2, is blue to yellow. So let's go down and let's see how many blues to yellows. So we're focused on blues to yellows. So go ahead and count how many blues you have and how many yellows you have. All right, let's take a look. So we have blue to yellow. So if I'm counting right, which hopefully I am, blue to yellow, we have 5 to 3. So we have 5 blues and 3 yellows. Okay, so let's think of how we're going to write that. So we said we have 5 blues and we have 3 yellows. Well, should I say 3 to 5? No, that's right. I should say 5 to 3. So I'm going to write it with the word first, 5 to 3, as the ratio and as a fraction. Okay? Now, can we reduce 5 to 3 and make it smaller? No, it's going to have to stay 5 to 3. So we're saying for every 5 blues, there are 3 yellow M&Ms. Okay, let's look at our next question. What is the ratio of brown to red or blue? So that means we get an option. When they say brown to red or blue, what are we going to do with the red and the blue? That's correct. We're going to add those together because they've given us a choice. We can either have red or blue. So remember, we're doing brown to red or blue. So let's see what we have here. Okay, so we're looking at brown first. I hope y'all can see that on this dark map. And then we're doing red or blue. So remember, we get to put these together. Okay, so go ahead and count and figure out what your ratio will be. Okay, I think I've counted right. I have 6 browns and I have 7 reds and blues. Okay, so 6 browns and 7 reds or blues. All right, let's see how we would write that. So we said we had 6 browns and 7 reds and blues together. So our ratio would be what? 6 to 7. There I've written it up with the colon. with the word 2 and as a fraction. So we have 6 to 7. So we're saying for every 6 browns, there are 7 reds or blues. Okay, let's go to our very last question. What is the ratio of orange or yellow to total? So we have orange or yellow to total. So they're giving us another option. Here it is, orange or yellow. We get to pick. So what should we do with those orange or yellows? That's right, we're going to put those together to the total. So that's going to take us a little bit of time to count. So let's put the orange and yellows together. Then we get to look at the total. So go ahead and count. Okay, we can go ahead and look at the orange or yellows together. Leave it there. Okay, so let's see. We have 3. So we have 10 of those. So I'm going to go ahead and just write that up here because we have a lot to count. So I'm pretty sure that's 27. Okay, so I just wrote those numbers up on the screen so we could see them. In case you're like me, it took you a while to count them. So we have 10 orange or yellows, and remember we put those together, and we have 27 total. So what is our ratio going to be? Is it going to be 27 to 10? No, you're right, it's going to be 10 to 27. So 10, I'm going to put the colon first, 10 to 27 as a fraction, and the last way is with the word 2. Very good. Okay, that's our activity together. Again, after we finish, here in just a second, if you want to go and find some of those M&Ms or Skittles or whatever kind of, anything you get your hands on that's different colors, and you can count and you can do your ratios on your own. So, thanks for joining us guys. I'm Miss Sorrell, again, 6th grade math. I hope you had a great time. I'll see you back here very soon. Have a great day.